Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 208 of the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. This is going to be an episode where we go over all the recent news and headlines that have to do with immigration. My goal is to do this once a month, but it kind of gets away from me. So it's been 2 months. We're going to recap from May 25th, which is when the last time I did this, episode 194, up until today, August 1st, going through the news and events in our field. Includes like stuff like who's hiring, what happened, different firms and stuff. I'm going to talk about that stuff a lot more because I think it's interesting to everyone know what's going on. But as it pops up, I try to save everything on my LinkedIn page for the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox. You can follow there. I think we have over 2,000 followers there, 2,100 followers. I'm going to go through it. So if you're watching the video, you can see the headlines too and where the source is. But if you're listening in the car, wash the dishes, which is what my listeners usually tell me they're listening. It's a fun thing to just keep abreast of stuff because there's so many little pieces of news that pop up. It's hard to keep track of all of them. And I thought, well, maybe I could be a source to keep track of everything so you can listen and get it all in one place. So with that, let's get started. I do want to mention that the Immigration Lawyer Toolbox magazine has been a success. We have so many readers and followers. You could download and read the magazine. It's online at immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com/magazine. We have so many articles. The next one's coming out in a couple weeks. Very interesting one coming out, special issue on O1A visas. But I really want to thank our sponsors, in particular DocuWise, who's a sponsor of the podcast as well. DocuWise is your all-in-one system for forms, office management, CRM, all the above. You can get 10% off their annual plan. This is the plan I have for their forms by going to DocuWise.com/immigration-lawyers-toolbox. Or Toolbox or podcast, so both codes, but Immigration Lawyers Podcast, let's say, and use the code Immigration Lawyers Podcast. And you'll just, if you're new to them, just call them up or contact them, do a walkthrough to see what the service is. And if you're an existing person, like me, who for years was doing, month to month, just get the annual plan and save the money. I didn't realize that. And after I had this promotion, I didn't realize I was selling the month-to-month plan. So for no reason, I was paying more. I'm like, wait, I should use my own promotion. I did. All right. So what else I want to talk about? Oh, yeah. So we have people who are new to the game, interested in learning about practice of immigration law, in particular the family marriage case, which is the core of what I do. If you're interested in having a detailed course on that to take yourself next level, let me know. Email me at info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. And I have to say, this is all just general education content that's going to be talked about. It's not intended for individual legal advice. All right. So with that, we're going to start from what the last post was posted on LinkedIn and move forward. The first thing is I want to mention is a post by one of our colleagues, Robert Weber. If you're on LinkedIn, definitely follow him. He's really active in talking about immigration law there. And he references, I-94s. And I shared this, and I just want to talk about different things that are problematic with Form I-94. One thing in his post here is about those who are coming through a land border. And I have a consultation with somebody who had this issue. When you enter on a land border and you have a visa or the border crossing card, you have to request the I-94 beforehand. And you have to call them up, pay it, and go to a separate line to get an I-94, or else they'll just let you in once they see the visa. They may not even stamp your visa. Now, it goes in the travel history page most of the time when you go to the CBP website, and you can pull that off. There won't be an online I-94 if you come by land, but they're going to have the travel history. Now, that's not the best source to show that you enter lawfully. I've had it work before, and I've colleagues that had it work, but I could easily see a USCIS adjudicator say no. So you really want to have that paper I-94 form to show that you came in lawfully. I mean, if you come with an airplane, it's not a big deal, but it's this land border, both like Canada and Mexico. They're doing so many numbers that they don't bother doing I-94. So that's a really obnoxious thing that we have to deal with. So be prepared for that one. Now, this post from 2 months ago here, it says USCIS eases visitor restrictions for fully vaccinated individuals. But now, August 1st, they're pulling it back. And I think they had posted that, at least in LA, I know, but I think it's just countrywide, that if you're going into the building, you have to be masked and go regardless of whether you're vaccinated or not, because this Delta variant is pushing in. Now, a cool thing that they are doing at Homeland Security is they're extending I-9 flexibility requirements so that people won't have to show up sometimes and all that. So that's good. The I-9 has flexibility. And one thing this has caused is about once a week, I get someone calling me saying my employer wants me to go to like a notary or somebody to have my I-9 verified. And do you do that? And I'm like, it's not something I do. It's kind of weird, but frankly, I tell them it'd probably be cheaper to go to a notary or something like that, or even a paralegal who has whatever accreditation. Because for me to do it, I'm going to charge like my hourly fee to do it. So I'm not sure you want to pay that, but if you want, sure, let's do it. And they always say no. So that's something that's going on there. Now we have a post by one of our colleagues, Liam Shores, who's really active. They say the State Department is changing the word alien from the book from the Foreign Affairs Manual because of that that's not the term to use anymore. I think they do go with non-citizen nowadays. So it is what it is. But you're changing the deck chairs on the Titanic by just changing these names and titles with, as usual, not fixing the systematic issues. Now, Wazden Banis, Jonathan Wazden was a regular on our show, and Banis, they partnered up and created their own law firm that focus on lawsuits. They're following a lawsuit on, or they I'll open the link and read it for you. Let's see. So I think it was Banis that posted this on Twitter, which is interesting, saying, we've gotten a lot of interest. I think it's the law firm account, but we've gotten a lot of interest in group lawsuits for adjustment of status delays for all those employment-based cases filed in October, November. I filed like 6 of those. Right now it's August 1st. No employment authorization or advanced parole documents, and it looks like adjustment's not happening anytime soon. The numbers reset in October, so it's a mess. But they say we are not filing any lawsuits for 3 reasons. One, the court, including DDC, have found that courts do not have jurisdiction over these claims for various reasons. And that's an important note. The DC District Court District Court DC is really challenging people who are filing these APA lawsuits for delays, saying it's not acceptable. So be careful filing lawsuits there. 2, they say the courts that recognize jurisdiction over I-45 delay claims regularly dismiss such cases or until they've been pending for 3 to 5 years. And 3rd, I-45 delay lawsuits are very difficult to bring as a group because if one member of the suit has a criminal background or a national security concern, it will give the government a very good basis to move to sever or separate group cases to individual cases. So we do not condone or agree with delays associated with I-485s or the waste of these numbers, but litigation is not appropriate for every harm. While we firmly believe litigation works, or hashtag litigation works, it has its limits. So that's a comment made by the Wazden Banis law firm. Now, there was an update on naturalizations for veterans living overseas. I'm going to get into that. The numbers probably aren't too much on that. Now, one thing is I have this podcast series I call Thoughts on Law and Practice. The last episode is number 195. I probably could title it better, but what I used to do for a large chunk of the Immigration Lawyers podcast, what I would do is just take notes of everything I learned every day, and I would just read them off for half an hour. And those are pretty popular, so I brought that back. And what I used to do is just list all this stuff that the content, the material was about, and put them in the subject line so people were interested in choosing which one they want to listen to. But that's kind of hard and it won't fit. So I just say thoughts on law. So if you see that heading, that's what it is. I think it's probably the best podcast there is for practitioners because it just goes over a random hodgepodge of things I learned. And you might know most of them, but there'll definitely be something that you don't know. There'll be an update. A lot of them are fresh because, our area of practice changes so constantly. So that's something to definitely I recommend getting. Jeffrey Chase, former immigration judge. I think it was on BIA, I think. It says the roundtable of former immigration judges submitted an attached letter to General Garland urging the vacating of precedent decisions. So they're pushing him to vacate precedent decisions. And if you've been listening to the podcast episode with Kevin Gregg, they are pushing a lot. The new Attorney General is undoing a lot of the BIA decisions. So that's a good thing to undo a lot of this wildness. Now, one thing that happened with the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan is there are a lot of these translators. It seems there's like 18,000 of them, and they weren't sure what to do. And within the administration, there was discussion of whether to process them, which is really hard. It takes forever, which puts danger to them, or bring them to the United States, maybe do some sort of advanced parole or whatever, and then have them do probably EB4 or whatever it is in the U.S. And some are saying no, because if they're in the United States and there's an issue, we don't want to prove them. They have the right to court and all that. So that's one of those reasons they don't want them in here. But it seems the military made it worse, saying we support them. And I didn't post this on my LinkedIn page, but I saw some sort of article showing buses of Afghan refugees being moved for the processing within the United States. So it seemed like it's moving forward. 18,000 is a large number. I'm not sure all of them are, but you put your life out at risk to do translation work, and you want to get out of Afghanistan. Now, the issue with Canada is still a problem with the border. In general, U.S. and Canadian and Mexico border and Canada, There's restrictions on business or urgent entry into the United States. I think that's still there. But Canada itself has had some really crazy kind of hardcore quarantine regulations going on. They're somewhat easing some of them, particularly for Canadians. I don't read too much into it because it's, there's a lot to read. But that's something to be mindful of if you have Canadian clients going back and forth. Next thing, it says High Court reverses Ninth Circuit asylum credibility test. I'm going to leave that to our conversation with Kevin Gregg. Mayorkas ends remain in Mexico policy. So it's interesting what's going to happen with that. Technology company CloudGen admits to H1b visa fraud involving Indians. And that's an unfortunate one because they soak up all these H1b numbers doing the kind of fraudulent kind of stuff, which is terrible for a lot of people who can't get chosen. It seems that they admitted to it, and what was the fine they're going to pay? CloudGen took a percentage of the worker's salary, which amounts to nearly $500,000 from 2013 to 2020 when the scam took place. Chief Judge Lee Rosenthal of the Southern Texas Federal Court is to impose a sentence in September and could be as much as $1 million in probation for 5 years. I don't know, my financial mindset might be different for other people, but to put yourself into this kind of position, so you have the federal government come after you, trying to net $500,000 is not worth it over a 7-year period. It's like less than $100,000 a year. But there are probably more different ways they're making money, because for $500,000, definitely not worth having the feds come after you. Maybe it was 10 million, maybe worth it. I don't know. I'm just kidding. So, definitely always check out these posts by Robert Grubb, where one note he made he says, if you are preparing H1B petitions, here's an obscure time-saving technique. On Form I-129 Part 5, Question 2, it asks for the LCA or ETA case number. It is permissible to simply write "See attached LCA." This saves you the time and hassle of adding the precise LCA on every Form I-129. I can't remember when I first saw this or another law firm's I-29, but when I did it, I thought that's brilliant, and I've used it for many years since. A lot of firms are mass filing H1B, especially if you got 100 cases, it really saves time. Now, the embassy in London has been a nightmare. They're canceling more visa appointments, and I talked with a colleague there. Which episode was it? That was a couple of episodes ago with one of our colleagues that's located in London, who just pretty much focuses on London consular processing. And her name is Amanda Susan Brill. And she was saying it's terrible what's going on. Even to get an NIE, the waiver for a visa because of COVID, it could take 3 weeks. And the embassy in London is getting like 8 times the normal amount of emails. So it's a really crazy situation. Now, interesting thing, Republican Senator Rand Paul proposed a B3 family visa. And this is definitely something I support strongly because of the delays that are happening. They say that, let's see what's a breakdown of it. There's something support, but when it comes to legislation, they introduce this kind of stuff all the time. I've tried supporting this and that, and just it fizzles out, so I stopped bothering getting too much into it. But it's cool. It said they established a new B3 non-immigrant category, allowing U.S. citizens and permanent residents to petition for their family members for temporary visas. Under the current system, family members of U.S. may only apply to visit through B2. There's backlogs. I guess it makes a separate category for them. Does it allow to adjust status afterwards or something? What's going on? I didn't read the whole thing. But, anything that pushes this kind of stuff, I support. But, the devil's in the details and how it actually comes out. Ninth Circuit says judges can reopen deported immigrant cases. That's good, but Ninth Circuit has been failing at the Supreme Court level. Let's see if this goes all the way up. Our colleagues at Fragment had a tech announcement that acquired Nomadic. Okay, what is Nomadic? So our other colleague, Roman Zelechenko, is really on top of immigration tech, says, here's some context. Nomadic is a tech startup that helps companies manage, among other things, short-term business travel. I think this global migration thing, taking it from just U.S. immigration to global migration, which is, Fragment's been working on that for a long time, but they're really pushing it, really taking things to the next level, especially as the competition is picking up. You've heard me talk about the Big Four coming into it, and we're going to talk about that more later. But definitely there's some more sort of headlines I want to read about that. But, Fragment also has other competitors that are within the field that are nipping at its heels to become the biggest and the best. And best is relative. We're all good and some are bad, but I guess the biggest, let's say, that has most volume and handles the most amount of jurisdictions and all that kind of stuff. Right behind it is BAL, Barry Appelman and Ladin LP, which we'll get to sooner, but they pretty much just got into Austin, and it got it's absorbed a firm over there from or former people from another relatively big law firm of Jackson Lewis PC. And so, Barry Appel Line or BAL, as they call it, has around 180, 190 lawyers. Fragment has around 280 globally. So, but, by acquiring and expanding, we'll talk more about that in a bit. They're really pushing up there. Semi-distant second is Ogletree Deakins. They have around 110 immigration lawyers there. And you probably don't hear that name Ogletree Deakins too much if you're an immigration lawyer, but that they are there. So it's a big player in the field. All right. So Global Entry, another post by Robert. This podcast essentially Robert Weber's podcast. Is copy what he says. Just kidding. But it says Global Entry is a program run by U.S. Customs facility. A lot of people could take it. Even if you're not a green card holder, you could still use Global Entry. So let your clients know about that. What else? He also says in a different post, I'm sorry to not being as independent. Oh no, my feed. So let's do a pause and fix it up. All right, sorry, I'm back. So we'll skip to the next one. Interim guidance to OPLA attorneys regarding civil immigration enforcement and removal policies and priorities. It's a big deal. The administration is finally updating and bringing back to normal, reasonable terms regarding ICE enforcement on different matters. Law firm that advised Kuros on EB-5 project to pay $3.25 million settlement. Oh, wow, that's a big settlement. What's the story there? This website, 7 Days of Vermont, says law firm accused of helping the former owner of J Peak Resort defraud investors has agreed to pay $32.5 million to court-appointed receiver, untangling the mess left behind the massive scandal. For those of you who aren't aware, apparently there was this EB-5 program in Vermont, which was semi-government approved, but a lot of shady stuff happened, and the feds came in. Mitchell Goldberg, the receiver, a settlement agreement with the firm Mitchell, Silberg, and Knupp. I think that are like a major law firm, aren't they? They'll have to pay back this money, hopefully make some of the money back. But the people involved were accused of misusing $200 million to $350 million raised through the state EB-5 program. But 32 million is about 10% of that, or more or less. So it won't really bring back the money. But interesting to see these kind of pain points being pushed. EOIR warns of scammer spoofing agency phone number. I've seen it's not just EOIR, but every once in a while there'll be these binges where clients will call and people will call and say, "Oh, USCIS called me asking for my social security number," and all this kind of stuff. And these people could spoof the number so it shows like USCIS on your phone you're calling. So I always tell clients, like, they're not going to call you. They're always just going to mail you a letter or something like that. But the thing is, even though they're not supposed to, for example, in our field office here in Los Angeles, the director has specifically said that they told their officers, do not call people, send them a letter. But every once in a while, the officer calls after an interview and they're missing something and the like, they'll call. And, it helps out because it's faster to just call and get to the bottom of something. But it's also risky because there's this kind of fraud stuff happening. So it's a really tricky solution. I wish their online portal was more reasonable. I still haven't figured out how to use it. But if they could communicate on there so he knows from them, and that's a fast way to do it too. But unfortunately, not happening. Next article, Law 360 says docs show ICE didn't track consent for alleged sterilization. That's disgusting that they would do that. Mission Mexico, routine appointments for third country national applicants not normally resident in Mexico are not available at this time. And this is something we always deal with. A lot of people in the US don't want to, on NIVs, don't want to fly back to the home country, want to do it in Canada or Mexico quickly. But essentially those two avenues are shut down. Mexico is already tough anyways. You couldn't get your initial visa. So let's say you're on a student visa and then you want to go on L1. You couldn't go to Mexico. You'd have to have an L1 visa in the past and want to do an extension or something like that. But that's that. We have a post by Barry Alvin-Light that talks about them, Katie Mann, one of their attorneys, saying we're hiring an associate immigration attorney in their Dallas and SF locations. So keep that in mind. If you're in those areas, you want to do some high volume business kind of cases, that's a firm that can be interesting for you. Bad news, High Court says TPS holders illegal entry bars green cards. Wow, this is a month ago. It seems like forever ago this happened, but the Supreme Court finally made a decision for the split that was happening in circuits to the detriment of TPS holders, saying TPS is not considered admission. So if they entered EWI and, for example, get TPS, then marry a U.S. citizen, they can't adjust status based on that, which sucks. There's a lot of cases where people have filed for immigrant or adjustment of status when, like in Ninth Circuit, the case was pending. Supreme Court made this decision, and they're like, "Oh man!" So it's just a waste of time and money right there. But that's that. I do want to mention one of our sponsors, Visa Business Plans. I did an interview with Marco Scanu with the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox and in the podcast, discussing like what they do and how people, can contact them about getting immigration business plans. And what's interesting, he said, he has an article in the next issue talking about this. He originally himself is a foreign national, got an O1 visa and used the business plan for the O1 because he was involved in business activities. That was, we always think, E2s, EB5s need business plans, but you can pull that off for O's as well. 6,000 H1b visas available for Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala for H1b. But that's that. USCIS updates policy to improve immigration services, expedited processing. So, this is interesting. I had one case I talked about where a client of mine, petitioner, marriage case, diagnosed with cancer, had need surgery. We requested expedite, was denied twice. But eventually it was approved. So after 2.5 months, finally we got the I-130 approved, and NBC immediately started the case. But USCIS is updating that they're redoing their process for expedited processing, request for evidence and notice of intent to deny. Those are still have the extension time. But it says those automatic denials that Trump was said, if you're missing a document, they're pulling that back. And the employment authorization documents, it's interesting, are increasing from 1 year to 2 year. But at the same time, if they're increasing 1 to 2 year, that may mean that the adjustment status process is going to take longer, which is going to suck on that end. Now, one side note is, I don't handle DACA cases too much, but I have one DACA case where we're doing, what are we doing? Advanced parole. And I saw that it was ending in the end of the year. So I'm like, oh, renew it. And then I remembered, wait a minute, wasn't there a court case that automatically extended the DACA for 2 years, even for those who had one who continuously do extensions? And so when you go to the website for the I-821D for DACA, it references that December court case where it said they're going to allow new cases for DACA, and pretty much they say automatically extend the work permits and the status, or it's not status, whatever DACA is, for 2 years. But then there was a new case that said you can't do new DACA cases, and I've read that. Does that apply for the extensions being only for 1 year or 2, or what's going on? And USCIS hasn't updated their page. So that's obnoxious that they're not updating their page, but that's what we're dealing with. All right, so what's next? USCIS announces Lockbox filing flexibility. What is that? Let's open up the link and see what it says. It says U.S. immigration filing temporary flexibility is a 60-day continuation up until August 9th, 2021. So it says if you submit a benefit request, certain applicants impacted by delays. So this was the thing because they're actually back to normal. So I'm getting marriage, I-751 and 400 cases, checks cash within 3-4 days, and receipts at my house, or not house, at the office, in like 7 to 10 days. So they went back to normal filing times. Although one of my colleagues was freaking out because it'd been like 30 days and still no cash check or receipt. And I was like, oh, you should refile. He didn't, wait a couple more days, and actually the check was cashed and they got the receipt. So they're still somewhat doing it, but they went back and said, these cases where it took too long, and for example, the check became outdated and bounced and stuff, they're going to go back and kind of fix up the situation. So if you have one of those, definitely look into it. It's a messed up situation I went through, but it seems like it's changing. Now, the policy manual for USCIS launches a history tab, so you can see historical changes to the policy manual. What I would like is for the policy manual to be fixed, first of all, so all the sections are there. And secondly, I'd like it for them to have the adjudicator's field manual accessible as well. That's what I would like. But hey, you don't always get what you want. All right, so definitely when you check out the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine, it's one of those chock full of information kind of things, free. Just go to immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com/magazine. One of the interviews, the main interview we did, the cover interview with Katia Quiros, was a colleague of ours who's in Nevada, but she has got a massive following on social media. Pretty much millions of people see her, and she talks about how she got herself where she is. So we did a video interview and a podcast interview. You can check that out, but also check out the article in the Toolbox magazine. You're going to enjoy it. Now, Vermont Service Center address changed. Was it Vermont that closed, or was it, let's see, was it Vermont says, effective June 14th, Vermont Service Center will no longer receive any incoming mail at the St. Albans, Vermont facility, which is being decommissioned. So make sure to switch that up. As usual, they don't give you much notice. The same day they stop accepting these, the same day they release this information, no heads up. I thought they would have stopped that stupid policy. after Trump, but no, it continues. USCIS message: USCIS issues policy update to better protect victims of crimes. U visas. Well, that's good. Hopefully, something good will come of that. But I don't handle U visas. Don't know much about him other than saying go contact another attorney that does. U.S. Embassy in Afghanistan suspending visa operations. We talked about the issue with translators, and this is it. It's bad. If these Afghani cases, Iran, Afghanistan, you see these delays. It's horrible. One of our colleagues, Scott Andrew Folks, I had an interview with him saying today, this is from a month ago, today a semblance of justice was restored for those seeking relief from persecution based upon gender or family. The Attorney General vacated 3 decisions from the prior administration, which functionally denied all asylum claims based on these grounds. So that's some big change that happened. The visa bulletin in July, let's go back, was published. And so, yeah, a lot of these decisions, matter of A, B, and all that. And I talked about those with Kevin Gregg. Definitely check those out. Now, one thing that's happening with EB-5 is the regional center program currently stopped and they're on hold or something like that. So people are trying to find other ways. There's the Entrepreneur Parole Program. Our colleague Belma Chinchoy, who's actually going to we're working on putting on an EB-5 course. So if you're interested in that, email me at info@Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, really breaking down direct investment for EB-5. But a lot of people are now going to the Entrepreneur Parole Program, which is one of the most badly written programs, in my opinion. When it came out, I read the whole policy and regulations. I did a whole podcast on it. You can check it out. But there's so many issues with the program, just that it's just parole. You may have to leave the U.S. and come back, for example. You need to show that the investors are qualified investors, which requires them to give a bunch of financial documents, which they won't want to give. So is it something that's worthwhile? No, it's really a last resort, but that's something that's there. Now, one good thing is the Foreign Affairs Manual has been revised to extend the validity of police certificates for immigrant visa applications from 1 year to 2 years from the date of issuance. Obviously, with the huge delays, that's something that's really needed. I did an interview with one of our colleagues in Chicago, Alan Tash. Definitely check it out, Issue 198, talking about how he runs his practice, very family immigration-focused practice, but himself, refugee family that came here, got all together, started his law firm, and talks about his passion in the field. Some fun stuff to check out there. All right, so our colleague again, Robert Weber, I want to mention him if I don't mess up the sides, but he talks about EB, which is business-based focus, and this is pretty long, so I'll try to skip through it. But regarding downgrades from I-140s and premium processing, which I've been getting a lot of calls about this, and I don't really know the whole downgrading system. I know the adjustment status portion, I get hired for that, but he says, in general, it's not a good idea to file a downgrade I-140 and request premium processing, particularly if A, the downgrade I-140 is filed as a second I-140 using the initial 9089 perm approval, and B, the downgrade is done beyond the normal 6 months validity period of the 9098 approval. The premium processing unit will generally reject the request. What does work in every instance we have tried is filing the downgrade I-140 via regular processing, waiting for the receipt, and then converting the case to premium processing with the downgrade receipt notice. One of the 2 things should generally happen with this approach. Either A, the conversion to premium processing will be receipted, you'll get a decision within 15 days, yay, or B, you'll get a rejection and told to refile 31 days later. Weird, but okay. The whole exercise is nonsensical, like much of what U.S. immigration lawyers and stylists learn do, but it is in general possible to get a downgrade. Check out his site. He says, bottom line, don't seek premium processing with the initial downgrade as a general rule. 2, wait until you get the downgrade, receive, and convert. So that's some good news if you're filing in this kind of space. I might ask them to post that in the magazine. I think that's some good information for people dealing with that. I want to congratulate Victoria Nielsen. I think she was on the podcast as well. Won the inaugural National LGBT Bar Association Legal Services Award for her pro bono work. God bless her. Thank you for her work. Fragman is seeking a business immigration associate in his Los Angeles office. Ooh, colleague right here. So if you're interested in getting involved in the fast-paced business immigration world of Fragman in their Los Angeles office, which I think our guest and a friend of the show, Mitch Wexler, I think he runs the office. He's in Irvine. I think his partnership is started there. Great leadership. So definitely a great place to be. A lot of my, I'm in LA, so a lot of my friends work at that office, and they're all happy. None of them are leaving. So they've been there for years. So it seems like a really good office to work at. Our colleague at Green Spiegel, Leah, says, did you graduate from college and look for a legal career? Are you a newly minted JD associate? We're hiring. Green and Spiegel US, fast-growing immigration law firm. I've worked intimately with them. Definitely a great place to connect and maybe get. I think they're Pennsylvania-based, but they have side offices around the country. Now, one of our colleagues who just focuses on litigation, listener as well, Joseph Gentile, has opposed immigration delay litigation, informing the government that they must be sued. Definitely check that out and have an article in our next issue, but it's about these lawsuits for delayed cases. I did an interview with Felipe Alexander. I think he's a Brazilian, but immigration lawyer in the U.S. He's been pushing YouTube pages a lot, and he's been very involved with the politics of China and human rights abuses, doing a lot of asylum cases. We talked about that in an interview, episode 199. Check it out. And he talks about his business. He's making scaled up to a 7-figure, going higher law practice in a short amount of time. And he's really excited about sharing that information. So he's a good mentor to have. Felipe Alexander, definitely contact him and let him know you heard it from the show. It'd be cool. Now we have a self-service kiosk that are now available for BIA and URR payments. That was the issue I remember we had in the past, trying to go to, I think, USCIS to pay those, and it was not easy. They're doing self-service kiosks. On the international migration end, France says travelers from US and Canada can now enter completely restriction-free. I think that's if they have vaccines or something like that. But who knows, this stuff changes overnight. Canada extends US travel restrictions through July 21st, and that comes and goes. Another law firm, Scott Legal, another friend of the show, he hasn't been on, but it's a good colleague. They do a lot of all sorts of stuff, a lot of business stuff to E2s. You have to check it out. They're looking for a business immigration associate. I think they're going to allow, and don't quote me on this, they're probably going to want someone virtual because the owner is doing semi-virtual right now. So check it out. That'd be a fun gig to have because you get a lot of experience and great team over there. HumanRightsFirst.org is also looking for an immigration attorney. Actually, just a second, I got to save these to put in a different place. Just a second, I'll pause it. Back. So as you mentioned, the C9 for adjustment of status, EAD is going to get automatic 2-year extension. The new ones that are issued. Hopefully, that's not a bad sign of the time that they're going to be taking even longer. Another job opening position, trial attorney, Office of Immigration Litigations, working for the Department of Justice. I'll have these listed in the next issue of the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine. But if you haven't followed the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox LinkedIn page, they're all there. Keep updating regularly because there's a lot of immigration jobs out there. They're really looking for it. Now, this is an article that's back a little bit, but it says EB-5 best amount reinstated to $500,000. That's really interesting. So something to look into. I guess the regional center program is on hold right now, but doing direct investment, get it in. But the thing is, I tell people I stopped doing EB-5, but what I would tell them is, listen, like creating 10 full-time jobs with just $500,000 is going to be hard. And that's why we have the regional center model, which allows you to show economic expansion or something like that to make up for jobs as opposed to direct employment. So that is the way to go. If you're going to do direct investment, 500,000, you got to have a really lean operation to be able to afford that. So that's something to be mindful of. I think this is kind of talked earlier, but USCIS will allow resubmission of certain fiscal year 2021 H1b positions rejected or closed due to start date. So they're bringing that back, fixing that up. Not familiar exactly what that is, but that's something to look into. We have a reference to the previous issue of the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine. Nadine Heights was a regular of the show. She's really good, a colleague. She has her own page, TIP, I think it is, Technology Immigration Practitioners, or I always say it wrong. It's not. I'm not spelling the letters right. But email me if you want to listen on that. The Toolbox magazine has links to all the Facebook pages where you could join for immigration lawyers. So definitely check that out. And if you want to join the Facebook group, it's a private group for the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, and you're a private practice attorney. You have to be a private practicing immigration lawyer. Just email me and I'll send you information on how to get into that group. But Nadine has so much information about tech stuff. We did an interview about it recently too. Talked about the Remarkable 2 notepad for taking notes and writing down. I use it on a daily basis. It's cost me $700, but I'm happy with it so far. It has been worth it. But she's been a lot of fun. So definitely check out her article in issue 2 of the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox. Check out her Facebook page, and she'll be back on the podcast regularly to talk about updates. So USCIS has extended flexibility for responding. Now, heads up, I had a case. So they say, if you're doing a request for evidence, notice of intent to deny, annoyed, all that kind of stuff. But there's a thing right here where it says a continuation to request evidence for N14. Now, for N14 is something they give you at the citizenship interview if they need more documents. But sometimes you do citizenship interview, which I had, and then a month later send what's essentially an RFE, but they won't call it necessarily a continuation to request evidence. And except for a little small number, there's like this row of digits in the bottom left, and in it that says N14. It's not clear if that is the N14, and there's no like exact sample. So I have one case that hired me because they were going to get denied and they got essentially annoyed, which is the request for evidence in the citizenship context. And we're hitting the 30-day mark. And I said, you know what? I think this is the M14, even though they're not clear about it. So that just bought us 60 more days. So be careful of this kind of stuff. Just know, I think it is. Colleagues have also posted they think it is as well. But yeah, they don't make things clear. But that's that. Now, so this extension, it goes, they say when, for cases since March 30, 2020 through September 30th, 2021. So it's all inclusive of the September 30th. So we got a little more time to take advantage of the stuff. We need it. We definitely need it. Let's see. Another article issue that we had was with Samir Kedeker. So a lot of these, big and medium-sized immigration firms, they do a lot of volume. So sometimes they hook up with these big corporations that need, 100 H1Bs and stuff. They send out what's called a request for proposal or an RFP. He did a great article in the issue 2 of the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, breaking down how to, view these things and how to come at them and think about them. So I definitely recommend checking that article out from Samir Kedeker. He's been on the show twice. If you're interested in, you're a medium-sized firm, you're trying to go to the next level. And get some huge volume like that. How to do that, how to think about it, I think is something that you're going to really enjoy. Justices won't hear Supreme Court CBP warrantless electronic search fight. So CBP's been doing some wild stuff, and ICE too, of this electronic stuff. But Supreme Court's saying they're not going to look at it. And so what happens, in a one-liner order, the High Court denied a petition for a writ of certiorari that a group of travelers represented by the ACLU filed in April, which means if ACLU filed it, then it's bad news. Some standing stays that's against human rights. So we'll see. All right. Justices deny bond hearing for returning deportees. That sucks. As I mentioned earlier, the validity of police certificates are 2 years. Iraq, which is this group, TRAC, I'm saying not Iraq. TRAC is this group, and we've had an interview with one of the co-founders, where they track, immigration court statistics and everything. And they're saying civil immigration lawsuits continue to rise. The latest available data from the federal court show that during May 2021, the government reported 467 new civil immigration filings, although one were suits filed in which federal government officials were dependents. That is almost a 10% rise from a year ago, and 100% rise from 5 years ago. So we see the direction things are going. Most of these cases are on the other immigration action thing. So I think they're mostly these consular processing lawsuits. That's the calls I get to. So that's what we're seeing happening. Huge amount of lawsuits happening to get things going. Another immigration opportunity for immigration lawyers. This is with Melman and Jacobs. So they're Houston in this, but they're growing. They're looking for law firm colleagues that are interested in working there. So I definitely recommend checking that out. It might be in Texas, so that might be a cool place. All right, so let's keep going. The Board of Immigration Appeals has issued a decision in matter of SLH and LBL. In short, immigration judges may exercise their decision to rescind an in absentia removal order and grant reopening where an alien had established through corroborating evidence that his or her late arrival at a removal hearing was due to exceptional circumstances. I think the case was this guy was on his way, accident happened, told the lawyer, hey, there's an accident, I can't come. And he still denied the case for not hearing up. That hearing, that's really good that they acted reasonably and did that. Some of this stuff is just ridiculous how tough they are on these things. Now, I'm doing clips, so if you listen this far, definitely follow the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox on Instagram and on LinkedIn. And so I have these clips I'm doing. So we have these podcasts are hour long, and within them might be, a 3-minute, 4-minute tidbit of information. You might not catch it, you might not catch the whole thing. So we're releasing pretty much hundreds of clips from the program over the last 6 years. Definitely watch them. There's gonna be information. I just came up on one when I'm reading on this LinkedIn page right here, my thoughts on the diversity visa lottery, some things that popped up. It's a short video, 4 minutes or 5 minutes. Check it out on the LinkedIn page, or easier is if you're an Instagram follower, follow Immigration Lawyers Toolbox on Instagram. There's a lot of content coming out there that you're gonna enjoy. We have another job opening at Asylum Seeker Advocacy Project. So if you're in the humanitarian side, you want to do that, you're going to find it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, another article that came out from the Toolbox magazine is about concept processing. Liam Schwartz, who's a regular contributor, did a really fun quiz, a consular quiz, and through it, you'll learn a lot. So definitely check out the Immigration Learners Toolbox issue 2, and check out the consular quiz by Liam Schwartz. You have a lot of fun. The answers are at the end too. They're on a different page or something like that, but you'll have a lot of fun reading that. Definitely check it out. We're gonna have more of these quizzes coming up. USCIS policy alert, naturalization eligibility, and voter registration through a state's benefit application. So there's a lot of things where people accidentally sign up to register to vote. When these mistakes happen, it can be very problematic for false claim of citizenship. They're trying to get better at it. I read the policy manual update. I couldn't really understand how it was helping, how it wasn't. You got to read in more detail. Usually I wait next time around when someone has the issue, but I like to read everything at least once over. I didn't see how much of a fix better it was, because some parts of it look like they're making it better. Other parts look like it didn't. So that's it. Now, the American Immigration Council, AIC, has these notes you should check out if your cases are affected by the Nis Chavez decision, Nis Chavez v. Garland. It's called Strategies and Considerations in the Wake of Nis Chavez. So definitely check that out. Link is on Immigration Learners Toolbox. Probably gonna have the next issue too, something to check out. Just go AmericanImmigrationCouncil.org, Strategies and Considerations in the Wake of Nis Chavez. So that'll be some way to help you out on your cases. DHS withdraw the duration of status rule, Trump was trying to take away DS for students. It was going to create a mess. Luckily, they withdrew that, the new administration. One thing that happens a lot in immigration is that we need to corroborate the information that comes, and a lot of times use expert opinion, especially for business cases. It's not necessarily business. It could be a national interest waiver. It could be O1s, that kind of stuff. We have a sponsor for the magazine, FIS, and one of their Foundation for International Services, Inc., or FIS, and one of their main people, Jeanette Turner. We're going to be doing an interview in a month or two. Talks about what is supposed to be in these letters, what you should think about, how to choose them. It's in the Immigration Learners Toolbox magazine. They have an article in there. I think it's really helpful for those deciding to use, expert opinions in their letters. I think it's going to be a really, really good thing. LA County charges 3 members of the family scamming dozens of immigrants. So they're just taking money to file fake cases. Horrible. Another clip I did, which I talked about one of the legal episodes I do, is becoming an egg donor or a surrogate mother when you're here on a B2 or something like that, or maybe on F1, is not legal. I would be hesitant to recommend people do that because it could be considered employment and lead to a violation of status and CBP, not allowing you to enter the United States. So we have a post by Rob Weber about L1s. It's kind of long, so I'll leave you guys to go check it out. Another USCIS policy update, petitions filing and processing procedures for Form I-140. And it says this post is edited from initial post. I'll let you read that too. There's a lot of stuff. I don't want to make this all a Bob Weber podcast. We have another job opening from a McEntee Law Group. They're in Chicago. Fiona McEntee posted this. She's going to have an article in the next issue of the Immigration Lawyers podcast. She's really a great immigrant advocate, really fun place to work out, doing a lot of getting more and more volume there on O1s and the like. Definitely check it out if you're interested in McEntee Law Group. I'm not doing my Irish accent properly. Secretary Mayorkas announces extension and redesignation of Yemen for TPS, temporary protected status. I think we also got that for Haiti. Backlog of skilled immigrants tops 1 million. Over 200,000 Indians could die of old age while waiting. It's a horrible situation there. Don't know how to fix that one. Department of State. Extension of validity for NIEs for travelers from China or Brazil is extended. I think they give like some sort of an extension. I'm not even sure what it exactly means, but I guess if they had it for 9 months, maybe automatically becomes a year-long extension. That's going to be really good. So definitely check that out. Another thing that popped up from the magazine, and I definitely recommend reading it, knowing about this, was there on the job. I did an interview with her. Is if you have these cases that are not H1b approved, the L1's not working yet, the O1's not working yet, you might need to send the person overseas in a different country, have them develop themselves with a relationship with the company, a year or two, then do the transition to bring them here on an H1b if they're chosen, or the L1 if they have the 1-year continuous work, or maybe an O when they have more skills. And so she talks about how to take someone and maybe go to Canada, for example, maybe take advantage of those kind of stuff, different options. She works at Global Migration, so she's going to be a continuing contributor to the magazine. I think you're going to enjoy it a lot. It's going to be some good information there. Another thing that was in the magazine, but we did a detailed interview with Scott Andrew Folks, is about the Asylum updates for 2021. Definitely check out all the different rules that are going there. All right, what's the next thing? So I did a poll from immigration lawyers on the private group page for the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, where again, if you're an immigration attorney practicing, privately, not government or something like that, let me know as the group. I asked different questions there. I did a poll about who's using the credit card form and who's using check. I use checks. I filed a couple of credit cards with a return saying there were issues. So I'm not messing around with the credit card form. I've sent checks, but I have issues. I usually check, you kind of keep things under more control. You just got to make sure you write it to the right place, put the right date on it. For example, sometimes, when January comes along, it's a new year, you end up writing the previous year's year, and that check is a lot older, 6 months old then, so it's not valid. But 74% of colleagues said they paid by check, 18% use both, and 8% they say they just use credit card. So it seems like it'll be a while before the transition happens to move over to that. All right, so let's see what else is happening. Perm labor shortages, okay. Oh, another one did. Actually, I posted the same thing twice. Never mind that. Biden officials divided on Afghan. We already talked about that. ICE has stopped detaining pregnant nursing migrants, so that's good. Let me see, even interview with Susan Brill. Let me pause it really quick to save some of this stuff. I'll be right back. Okay, so one thing that we came out in CBS News and other news outlets is that DACA cases are super backed up because the humongous avalanche or tsunami of volume of cases going there. And we're seeing things take forever for DACA renewals happen, new ones to happen for advanced parole. And advanced parole, it seems like it's taking more than 6-7 months. So be prepared for that. Biden administration is trying to hire more people to deal with it. But on the other end, if this case, a Texas injunction that says no new DACA case happens, all these cases will go on hold, and that's going to free up a lot of people. Hopefully, that's going to cause at least a DACA AP things to keep going. We'll see, but there's no way to really expedite it unless you have an emergency DACA AP. So we're stuck with that. It's really obnoxious. I just want these cases to kind of move forward so people could travel. A lot of them have like sick relatives that people just died. They want to go to their graves, all this kind of stuff. It's a messed up situation, the whole DACA thing. But definitely check that out. Now, unfortunately, there's a loss, and I think the Kurzman law firm had filed this lawsuit about how visa numbers are allocated, particularly in the EB-5 derivative space. So as they do it right now, and the statutes are never delineated properly, but let's say, there's 10,000 EB-5 visa numbers available. If one I-526, one person filing for EB-5 as a spouse and 3 kids, do you count that one unit as a visa for the visa countdown, or is it each member gets its own? And they were unfortunately unsuccessful, and DC Court of Appeals said, no, you count them each as their own, which eats up a lot of the visa numbers, which has led to the huge backlog that we see happening in Chinese EB-5. Now, Attorney General, in a decision of Matter Cruz Valdez, overruled matter of Castro Tum in its entirety, while rulemaking procedures of administrative closure is still possible. Judges, thank God. I had a long discussion with Kevin Gregg about this a couple days ago or 2 days ago when we had our interview, so definitely check that out. All right, Aussie stranded abroad. Oh man, this is crazy. So because of COVID, Australia is limiting the number of people that can enter every year, including its own citizens. So a lot of Australian citizens are stuck outside of Australia, for example, in the US, and the visa waiver program. Their 90 days is coming up, so they have to file for satisfactory departure or whatever that thing is called, which is really difficult. CBP used to do it directly. Now they push you to call USCIS first. And as you know, as listeners, if you call USCIS, you never know when you're actually getting a hold of someone. So it just made a nightmare for these poor people that are stuck outside. All right, what other fun stuff's going on? Secretary Mark, Somalia at TPS, we mentioned earlier, Yemen and Haiti is going to be talked about later. So a lot of stuff going on. State Department attorney joins BAL, adding more high caliber immigration talent. I'm interested to see why State Department attorney would join BAL. I should contact them and see what the deal is. But hey, BAL is really pushing itself. I guess the managing director was on Roman Selchenko's podcast, talking really business minded person. I have to have him on the show to see what's going on, but that's a law firm that's really pushing the boundaries and really expanding. USCIS expands credit card payment pilot program to form I-140 when requesting premium processing. So that's good. I remember once filing premium processing for an EB1C and paying by or L1 and paying by credit card in the case of return. Very embarrassing. Credit cards historically, other than these pilot programs, only work with lock boxes, not when you're doing service center stuff. That's why if you send like an L1 expedite, it's or not expedite premium processing, it's not going to work yet, or maybe it has. Stop doing L, so I don't know exactly which things have changed, but avoid the embarrassment and that happening. District Court approves settlement in lawsuit challenging immigration agencies' unlawful rejection of over 60,000 humanitarian applications. Wow, I think this was the case. Hat tip to Northwest Immigration Right Groups. I think this was the one where you didn't write NA, they rejected it. 60,000 cases is wild, 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 wild thing that happened by them, and that's who we're dealing with. All right, Board of Immigration Appeals, they're just undoing a lot of kind of stuff. Immigration judges and the board lack the authority to recognize the equitable defense of latches in removal proceedings. I didn't read that one, not sure what all it means. Latches are something I remember from law school. It doesn't pop up too much in my practice. Certain temporary protected status applicants can now file the form I-821, I-765 online. That's great in the sense they've also made I-765s, the ADs available for OPT to file online, but it's a recipe disaster when they start these new programs. All these people are going to make errors. But these online systems don't work properly, in my opinion. Now we have colleagues. I think it was Nina Duda who always does. Is it Nina or someone else? Was a New York immigration attorney who says she always files online if she can, especially I-130s. I was listening to an AILA panel talking about how good the I-130 is to file online, because if you have new, for example, documents or joint documents, you can just upload it there and it goes in the file. But I can't wrap my head around how to use that system, and I just like the paper one. So I'm going to keep going that until they force me to stop. So that's that. Liam Short's a colleague again posts a lot about consular processing. In a recent change, the Department of State removed guidance that's in part of the 9FAM-E visa provisions for as long as there's been e-visa provisions. This is a deleted guidance. Quote, you must always remember that the basis of this classification lies in treaties which were entered into, at least in part, to enhance or facilitate economic and commercial interaction between the U.S. and the treaty country. It is with this spirit in mind that cases under the e-visa statute should be adjudicated, unquote. And it's very interesting because it was long known that when USCIS adjudicates an E2 and they're doing change of status or extension of status, they're hyper-focused on fraud. And that's the way they would really get you, is make some sort of fraud finding or question source of funds or something like that. But at the embassy, the focus was always like, well, how is this a business? How is it going to contribute to the U.S. economy and all that kind of stuff? So they were really coming at it from a different perspective. But by removing this language and the delineating the spirit that it should be reviewed, you see which direction things are going. Very surprising that this is happening under the current administration, but that's what we're dealing with. We expeditious naturalization application material information. Department of State has a link to that. They say that translations. Oh, this is regarding the document translation part. And this is really important. They have a sample of this posted of how they expect the translations to happen. And it's really important because you should have translation certificates available for your clients to do on their own, in the sense that, we have sponsors that are translate companies. You definitely use those better, especially, Journey is not Journey is a business plan. It's IMI Translate, FIS, those translations. We have other companies that are sponsors, but sometimes clients just can't afford it. And so I say, if you have a relative, someone outside the case that could translate it, they could do it. Just make sure the certificate of translation is there, the sign that they're translating it, and have the format ready. That's a possibility. But, I hesitate to always tell clients to do that, because once you do, it takes them forever. And I've had it where they bring back translations and I don't even speak the language, but I go at least review the numbers, or I look at the original document and I look at translation, and I'm like, well, the translation's half a page and the document's 2 pages. How do they fit all in there? Then I look at the numbers, and numbers not consistently translated. So having a professional is better, but if you see that people can't afford it, it is still possible to pull it off. And Department of State shows a sample, which is the sample that's always been there with USCIS as well. So U.S. borders remain closed until at least August 21st. Is this with Canada? Well, the joke's on us. The U.S. intends to extend the northern border restriction through August 21st. The government says, well, vaccination rates have improved. No, that's not good. Okay, so here's no employers must withhold FICA taxes for aliens who change visa statuses from to H1b. I guess I say withhold FICA taxes. Okay, so that's something that's interesting. But hey, that's on the employer. Filing location update for certain I-131s on July 1st. USCIS, July 22nd, said they're changing the I-131 filing addresses. So be mindful of that. You always have to check out the form. So whenever I'm going to mail something, regardless if I've done a million times, I always go to the foreign website and check out the filing location, because USCIS will change the stuff on you without you knowing. Now, here's a news update that came up on News Bloomberg. There's rumor is that PwC, which is one of the big accounting companies, is going to sell its global mobility division. And so that's going to be really interesting. Jeremy Fudge, the managing partner at Ballot, talked about this, and their alliance with Deloitte. So they're working closely with Deloitte, and PwC apparently selling its global mobility. So as some, of these big four accounting firms are getting more deeper into immigration, some are pulling out. It's interesting to see who's going to tap into this Canadian division of PwC. That's going to be fun to see how much it sells for, and if it's actually true, it might be just a rumor or something like that. But I mean, Bloomberg's saying it, so it's already out there. Let's see. There's a class action. Bangala v. USCIS reached a final settlement on class action for rejecting Blank's page. I think we talked about that, so that was a good thing that happened. Now, a lot of people do L1s, do it for a while, or they may be new at it. But the idea of how companies in the U.S. and abroad have to have a relationship gets really tricky, and people are really having trouble. I did an article breaking down 4 decisions, AAO decisions on L1s and EB1Cs about the relationship between the U.S. and the foreign company in a little more different kind of aspects than the typical, where, for example, a foreign company may own 100% of a U.S. company, making an easy parent-subsidiary relationship. But I have 4 types of cases. If you're interested in L1s, definitely something to look at, the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine. Check out my article about the relationships that these companies can and can't have, and examples of how people have messed up on that kind of stuff. Now, the Department of State has been really messing up on passports. They've been overwhelmed, understaffed. And so if you want to get a passport, it's taking huge delays. If you have a case for a naturalization and a client needs to travel afterwards, let them know, man, be careful. Don't schedule any travel, or you have some sort of plan, because getting a passport may take months. And to add to the delays because of COVID and all that, the State Department suspended passport online booking system because of bots. Apparently, there's some sort of bot issue that messed things up, and so a huge backlog has come up. The Department of State has gone as far as to say that if you're outside the U.S., you need passports and stuff like that, or get your passport before you leave the United States, because historically you just go to the embassy and get it really quickly. Not the case. I remember once I was in Germany and my passport expired, and I went to, I don't know, Frankfurt or wherever it was, the embassy there. And we went in, took some photos, half a day, went in the morning, probably 2 or 3 hours later, came out with my new passport. So they could do it pretty fast, but right now with COVID, not something that's popping up. Now, we have a post I shared from Ksenia Mayrova, a friend of the show. I just want to give you a heads up. She's a big sports immigration attorney, has her conference coming up pretty soon in Florida. So definitely look it out. I think it's called the SILC Silk 2021 conference. And she's been doing a lot of changes in her firm, breaking out, not only becoming a sports agent, but also really just becoming a niche law firm. No more taking grander kind of cases with their partner, going solo, and doing a lot of things differently, sharing a lot of information and mentoring about being your business, about receptionists and legal assistants in particular, talking about how the person who answers the phone is the first face of the company, and they could lose you could lose business like that. So I do want to mention first to plug at the fact that her conference there, definitely check it out. She's a great attorney, does a lot of work in the field of sports immigration. But the comment she makes here about people answering the phone is really good. The first real job I had one job where I was a telemarketer, lasted about 5 days, and I quit / got fired. I didn't show up to work, so they say either show up or you're fired. And I say, you know what, I quit. So you take that as you will. But I worked at a restaurant called Islands in Agora Hills, if you all know where that is, in Southern California. And they had just opened up, and I was a host there. And they trained us for like hours, like a whole day, like 8 hours, just to say hi how to say hi when people enter the store. And it's really annoying, but it becomes so important because that's the initial impression that sets the tone for everything. So you want to have the front face of your company really good. A lot of times, because I call a lot of immigration attorneys for phone calls, and I'll call their lines, and they have these call services, and they're awful. They answer the phone, and you feel like you're a piece of garbage when they talk to you, and then they'll put you on hold, and they'll transfer you to one person, they transfer you again and again and again, or it goes to a message, and when it's a mess. So be very protective of your brand. It's very, very important to think about having a proper person pick up the phone. I take my own phone calls. I get down to business really fast that way, but it always on the verge of going into insanity because of the number of calls, or just gets to the point I just don't answer the call or I leave. I would just return these calls later in the day instead of just answering as they're calling, which potentially leads to lost client. Because a lot of times when people call you, they want to get to hold and sign a deal or whatever right then. But it just depends on how you run your firm. But if you are going to do a call service, shadow, call them up, act like you're someone else, be difficult, have an accent, be hard to understand, see how they're handling this, because I all the time I'm calling call services for other lawyers and they're just awful. So it's really important that you have a good system set up for that. All right, so Rob Weber posted a comment. Apparently, the U.S. Department of State is doing email verification for TN candidates who are seeking TN visas at U.S. consulates in Mexico. I've not seen this before. Attached is an example of the kind of email clients are getting. He had an example where they ask about the job title, expected salary, all this kind of stuff from the company to verify it's a real job. So that's that. There's Reason Magazine had a really eye-opening breakdown. I was going to do an in-depth on that. I haven't had time to fully read it, but apparently Daniel Horn, another great person from Jackson Hurdock LLP, who posts a lot of good stuff on LinkedIn, says his synopsis of this Reason article titled "Americans Can't Travel Because State Department Employees Won't Work." Said, do you know who is back in the office? Unlike State Department employees who had access to COVID vaccines longer than most of the rest of us, scores of millions of Americans, including many, I guess this is a quote from the article, but many who would like to visit the relatives for the first time in a year and a half. Essentially, passport specialists need to be physically present in the office to process the passports. They're not, they're remote from home, so they're not processing passports. So that's what's happening. They're not going back to the office, and so it's not happening. We have another law job that opened up at PQE. So what is this? Gilton Vallejo Lawyers. Oh, yeah, this is Gilton Vallejo Lawyers. I'm not familiar with that law firm. I need to really check it out. But they have a position opening for a lawyer. Oh, it's in Sydney, Australia. Okay, that's why I'm not familiar with it. But if you want to go down under, have a job there, a lot of U.S. immigration attorneys go down there. They enjoy their life out there. Might be a place to go to. U.S. will not lift travel restrictions, citing Delta variant. So we're stuck with these travel bans continuing. I did an interview with Kate Lincoln Goldfinch. We were on a panel at the last AILA conference about modern marketing techniques, and she's really on top of it. She has a huge number. I thought I had a lot of 5-star reviews on Google. She has like 4 times as me. Really booming business, coming from a nonprofit background to become really savvy in business to be able to help more nonprofit kind of cases. So definitely watch that interview. It's very inspirational. Kate Lincoln Goldfinch, episode 206 of the Immigration Lawyers podcast. We have another department, Attorney General undoing matter in the matter of ACAA, saying the board should no longer follow ACAA 1, the first case version, I guess, in pending or future cases. This is case by case discretionary restored. I think this is about what is it called? Administrative processing, or whatever, administrative closure, something like that. I don't know, but if you're in removal, you definitely know a lot about that. The H1b Cap had the second round, did it again this year. They redo it, and it caused a big mess. So they had the H1b Cap Lottery, and the first round goes, and then not enough people are chosen, so they go a second round. In the meantime, some people lost out. Their student visa expired. They have to leave. It creates a lot of mess when they have this crazy-ish lottery system that we have. USCIS extends flexibility to certain applicants filing Form I-765 for OPT. Pursuant to a court order, USCIS extended the flexibility for certain foreign students affected by delayed receipt notices for I-765 EADs. So it's just been a mess when it comes to OPT. Usually those are faster. People are like not getting their EADs. Sometimes not more than 90 days past their graduation, which is a problem because they're not supposed to be unemployed for 90 days, but they can't work because they don't have the EAD yet. So that's just one of the issues we have. One of the friends of the show, Ayla Kermat Adomat, she has a law office in Germany. And she's over there. She's hiring immigration paralegal and junior U.S. immigration attorneys. So a lot of interesting things happening. You don't have to have your office in the U.S. I talked about Amanda Brill in the UK, Miss Adramat, Ayla Adomat in, where is she? I think she was somewhere like middle of Germany, something like that. I talked with her, but really a lot of cool stuff happening. TPS announced for Haiti, as I mentioned. New asylum office opening up in Tampa on August 2nd. Interesting. So let's drive in for those asylum attorneys. I guess there's a lot of asylum cases in that part of Florida, so they need it. So that's all happening. I guess with that good news, extra asylum office, hey, good stuff. We're going to end today's episode recapping the news and events for immigration law in the field of immigration. Check out the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine. So much information, resources there. Flip through it. immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com/magazine. If you want to contact me, just email me, info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. Check out the Immigration Law and Thoughts podcast I do. I'm going to record that pretty soon. A lot of stuff I've written down because I was supposed to have done 2 or 3 episodes of this, but it's added up. I'll see how far I get into it. A lot of different things I learned about the process of practicing immigration law that I think help you and your business. And with that, God bless, be safe, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.